Welcome back, everybody, to the NARPM Radio Podcast. And joining us today for another excellent show is my good buddy, Pablo Gonzalez. He is the chief evangelist of Vendoroo. We're going to talk to him about what actually is a chief evangelist here in a second. He has become completely focused on one thing, the impending disruption coming for the SFH property management, SFR property management. His work has seen him featured on the iconic books, The Ultimate Sales Machine and Belonging to the Brand, the keynote stage of NARPM Broker Owner. I do remember that. That was in Florida. And over 700 podcasts. So he is a podcast guru. He's probably going to give me four or five little ideas after this. He's probably going to be coaching me. And he's currently the host of the Property Management Frame Breakers podcast and Not Your Average Investor Show. So give those a look up. My buddy, Pablo, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I am phenomenal on a Friday again to talk to my boy Pete Neubig, man. This is a big moment for me. NARPM Radio. Ma, are you listening?
You thought keynote and broker owner was special. Now you get to be on the pod.
That's just one room, man. Here I feel like I'm in the world.
So, all right, man. I've known you for we've seen each other around for a year, but I got to know you really over the last few months with
Yeah.
our trek at the Grand Canyon and then the Tony Klein Onyx Retreat, which was amazing. And I've talked to you numerous times, been on the podcast with you. I still don't know what a chief evangelist is. So, what exactly is a chief evangelist, and do I need one for VPM? I feel like I'm missing out.
I don't know if you need one for VPN. That's a good question, but here's what it is. As you know, I've been obsessed with this idea of community creation for business development for the last 10 years. It's been my mission, and how do you do this at the grandest scale? It's what brought me to Vendoroo. Um, but in all communities, there's always somebody that's kind of like the Pied Piper of the community. And communities kind of like all come together, around some kind of like common mission. And the person that is like the flag waver of that mission becomes the chief evangelist, right? And like evangelism has a lot of religious connotations, but when it comes to secular evangelism, it's particularly important when you are doing something new that you understand what's in it for everybody involved, right? Like when you are bringing forth an innovation. I think the first guy that made the title chief evangelist is a Guy Kawasaki. His name is Guy Kawasaki for Apple, and he became this like famous chief evangelist during the dawn of personal computing. The way that I see it, the chief evangelist for a company that is bringing forth a new product is the guy that's like the tip of the spear on what this bat signal is around why we need to change or what's in it for us, right? Like my job is to spend time in market, to get to know influential people like you, to get to know property managers, our clients, to get to know the ecosystem, and to be in every room essentially saying, hey, I think this thing is coming, right? Like for the case of Vendoroo, it's like, hey, AI is coming. This is what we see. How do you see it, right? Because we think that it can solve this kind of problem, and if this kind of problem is now something a new problem we can solve, or an old problem that we can solve a new way that eliminates an old pain that we all thought was going to be there for it, for that we had to just like deal with, then it makes sense to change the game. It makes sense to adopt new technology. It makes sense to rethink the way that we do business or grow our business, right? So like my job is really to get to know people and understand what's valuable to them. And as I create those insights, share them, right? So like I make a lot of content, I do a lot of networking, I do a lot of public speaking, I
You,
go to
you
a lot
may
of
you may
events.
even go on a 25-mile hike
I,
to
I,
get to
I
meet people.
go,
Like you'll do whatever it takes, man.
I go on long walks in the rain with people, Pete.
It's an inside joke there.
Yeah.
All right, so and you're great at it, buddy. So
Thanks, man.
kudos to you. In this episode, I really want to talk a lot about you and I in the green room. We're talking about like, hey, what are we going to talk about? And we both came up with let's talk about like what you came up with this like the first day of a meme on the first
Yeah.
day of property management is Charlize Theron, and then by day 31 it's Bay Arthur, right?
Or
So
worse.
or worse. And
Yeah.
so And so, stress on property management company owners, on the property managers themselves, on the team itself, it's a real thing.
Mhm.
So I want to talk a little bit about Vendoroo first, and then let's talk about how it actually helps kind of de-stress the team. And then you and I are going to riff on a bunch of different ways that we have helped, that we think there are ways to de-stress your team as well, so that you don't have a lot of churn, because that is a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good, man. So I mean that says let's just start with that problem, right? Like Vendoroo is the founder of Vendoroo is the son of a real estate investor who at some point had to run this portfolio for his dad. And he's this like Harvard PhD in applied sciences. And when he started doing this and he started realizing, like, man, this whole maintenance thing on these properties, this sucks. Like, how can we do it better? And he decided to go like full ham on an AI first way of approaching this thing, right? And so my real insights, right? Like as my insights into property management come from two different places, from Vendoroo and from also being the host of this Not Your Average Investor show for a property management company that has 6,000 doors. They're a turnkey operator. So I know like the business at a high level, and then I know maintenance at like a feeling level. And what I see in maintenance is that when a renter has an issue, right? Like they might reach out and it might be, it might not be during working hours, right? Like, or maybe they're like, they have an issue right before they're got to get off and get their kid to school and then go to work and then they call you and they're not home. And so to figure out what's really going on, it takes communication, right? Like it takes a little bit of, oh, okay, sure. So the garbage disposals are working. Did you check the breaker? Did you, like do these kinds of different things? It takes a little bit of troubleshooting and testing stuff out in order to figure out what's going on there. And often the renter isn't fluent in that language, so it takes some explanation. It takes some coordination of just like, oh, well, I'm not going to be home till like 7 o'clock because I got to do this stuff after work. It takes some like real availability. And then once you have that figured out and you can like talk them through troubleshooting or triaging and figuring out that you got to understand the work order, then you got to go pick a vendor. You got to figure out when is the vendor available? When is the renter available? You got to coordinate those schedules and you got to be on top of the vendor for, did you get the job done? Like, when am I getting the paperwork? And then you got to answer all the questions to the owner about like every dollar spent. There is, a minimum of 6 touch points with every kind of like maintenance request if everything goes perfect. And what we're seeing is that there's actually usually more like 18 to 20, right? Like there's just a lot of these different touch points. And if you're thinking about a a human being needing to do all that stuff. Like let's say you have 300 doors or 200 doors and you have what would you say somebody with like 200 doors, about how many maintenance requests do you think they would get a day? Like
When I tracked it, when I had my PM firm,
yeah.
it was about 54 to 56% of the portfolio would put a ticket in each month.
Okay.
So for 200 doors, call it 100 to 110 work orders a month.
Yeah. Yeah. So 110 work orders a month, multiply that by like, let's just call it an even 20 touch points, right? Like it's a lot of touch points for people that have to like keep all that stuff going, um, wanting to spend all the time that you need with the renter to really figure out, can we fix this over the phone or
Yeah.
what it is
And
really intensive.
and you're talking a lot of stressful conversations.
Yeah.
So like you have a stressful conversation with the investor, because now he's got to spend money. He
Yeah.
never wants to spend any money. And then depending on what type of challenge it is, that resident, right? Let's say you're in Houston and it's an AC that goes out.
Hmm.
Resident is calling you every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Right. And then it's not like cut and dry because it's over the threshold.
Hmm.
Now the owner wants three quotes, right? Now your vendors are getting kind of upset because they're going out there on their own time and dime, and they're calling you asking if does this get approved? And so yeah, it just becomes this very stressful environment for property managers and for maintenance coordinators. And I can tell you, Pablo, the number one job that gets posted on VPM is maintenance coordinators.
There you go.
That's the number one job
There you go.
because of the stress level. So let's
Mhm.
talk. So let's talk a little bit about Vendoroo and how it reduces that stress level. My guess is it has those communications. So talk a little bit about. Can you open up the guts of it and talk about how it actually works?
Yeah, man, I'd love to talk about how it works. It's essentially AI maintenance coordination. It starts off with a voice agent that we set up as either your maintenance line or your front desk line that you call it, and it sounds like a person. And it's like really trained up on like maintenance knowledge. It's trained up on whatever your like FAQs and your lease documents are, and then it also has access to the internet. So its job is to figure out, is this an emergency? Is this a work order that needs to get created? Or is this an answer I can give somebody immediately? Or is this something that needs to get routed to somebody? So it serves as like a front end, and it feels very natural when you talk to it. I've actually had a podcast where I interview our voice agent that I don't know went kind of viral. I don't know if you've heard of it, but but then it goes from there to another intelligence that we've designed that's called our Resiroo. That is our resident facing intelligence that's made to be very de-escalatory, right? And like understanding. And that thing is like via text or email or however they choose to communicate, it'll go back and forth with the resident as many times as it needs. It's able to like read pictures and like read invoices and stuff like that to understand what's really going on, to then create a work order, right? So front desk receptionist that you can call a million times will never get mad at you. Texting intelligence that can really help you troubleshoot, create a work order to understand. And then we have another intelligence that is called Vencom that now takes that work order, knows your contractor base, knows your vendor base, selects the best vendor based on how you've ranked him and the notes that you've put in. Like, hey, Pete actually has a really good rapport with Doris over at Unit 2A and 123 Main Street. Whenever she's got something, send Pete. Everybody else send somebody else. Pete's really busy, right? So that type of level of selection, and then can coordinate that visit, follow up with the vendor to understand that we got everything done. And then we also have another intelligence that kind of guides it all. It's called PMRU. That is just like knows everything going on all the time. That if you wake up in the middle of the night and you want to text it or you want to jump into the Slack channel with it or your Google chat or whatever and be like, do I have any fires that I forgot to put out today? It'll be like, no houses are on fire, but it seems like in the morning you're probably going to want to address this stuff. Or you're in a work order and you can ask, hey, what really happened here? Is the resident mad or is the vendor mad? And it can tell you that thing or summarize things, right? So like you put all those things together into different packages, right? And you have this like agentic solution. Like if you have these different skill sets that communicate with each other, you can now start to really take the burden off of people's plates, whether it's like the barrage of phone calls and the triaging and troubleshooting and work order creation or the following up with vendors or whatever you choose. You get to now like reduce that. And what we see is that like, somebody might have like 60 work orders, but it'll boil down to maybe 6 to 10 actual human touch points across all these work orders when a human's really needed, not all these little communication points. And that gives people the ability to work on the business instead of in the business, right? Like now you get to start like building relationships with vendors and vetting them, or like, hey, that work order that costs $2,000, let's go really figure out what that price is so I can really explain this to the owner. And more than anything, just not be burned out by all these conversations and touch points and emotional things.
Yeah, it sounds like it does all kind of, let's say the lower level, lower tier, not stuff that's like super complex, right? It handles all of that. And then it allows you to search for what I call taps, two by fours, and Mack trucks, right?
Tell
So,
me more.
all right. So a tap could be something that, hey, this is a tap on the shoulder, meaning there's going to be a problem if it doesn't get addressed.
Yeah.
So you kind of solving the problem before it becomes a problem. Then you ignore the tap and then you get hit by a two by four, right? So a tap could be, let's just say it's a maintenance request that went unanswered for 7 days, right? That's a tap, could be a problem. The two by four is now that you got a complaint or an attorney calling you, or the owner, they circumvented and they called the owner, and now he's asking about the ticket that didn't get done, right? That's the two by four. And then the Mack truck is, of course, when the doorbell rings and they hand you a 100 page, a 100 page. Here you just
A
got served.
summons.
You just got
Yeah.
served.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. I love that.
the real estate complaint. So
Yeah.
basically, I look at AI right now, and this is probably going to change in 6 months to a year, whatever it is. Like I look at it like it can handle like kind of like almost the perfect stuff, and it can handle the original like, hey, here's the conversation, and then it allows you because it handles let's call it 90% of all the communication. I
Mhm.
can hand select the 10%, and now I can, because what do they say? Systemize 80%, humanize the 20%. I
That's right.
can't humanize 20% if
Mhm.
all I'm doing is the humanizations, right? So it's just like you get buried under it. So having something like Vendoroo allows you to systemize that 80%, humanize the 20%. And I think a lot of people think AI just means, oh, I don't have to be involved in it. And I just don't think that's the right approach, especially right now. AI allows you to monitor and then humanize the pieces that need to be humanized.
I love how you put that, man. I love the framework, and I really agree with you that it's not a silver bullet. It's not gonna just like fix your business and all of a sudden everything's going and you're still gonna have work to do, man. But your statistics are right. Like what we are noticing, it's like we're just really trying to like figure out what winning really looks like with AI. And we're seeing people, like our like Mendoza line is 85% maintenance automation, right? Like if 85% of your work orders go through without human involvement, you are winning, right? Like, and then at that point, now any tap, you have the ability to really like put all your attention to it, and it doesn't become a 2x4, and it doesn't become a Mack truck. But to your point, right? Like to your point, and the reason why we talk about it as workforce isn't because we're trying to replace humans. It's because you have to treat it like workforce, right? Like you still need somebody like our when we onboard people, the if you're going to onboard a great employee, right? They're going to show up to your company
And you train them.
and
No matter how great
huh?
they are, you got to train them.
And you're going to train them and you're going to train them, right? And chances are that they're going to show up and they're not going to be like, oh man, this is all great, I can just go. They're probably going to spend the first like month or two being like, yo Pete, are we sure we want to do things like this? Yo Pete, how do I, like I didn't do this in my last company, how do you like this done, right? Like hey Pete, in my last company we actually had a process for this, we don't have one here, you want me to make it, right? So if you spent like the first 2 weeks looking over every single thing that the AI does, asking it, hey, why'd you do it this way, right? Like, or what can I do here to help you make a better decision? And spend those 2 weeks just kind of like tuning, fine tuning. It's going to basically be this like beautiful mirror at your processes and your policies that you get to now spend that time like refining that. And then at that point, man, you're flying, right? Because it's not like you teach it once and it knows it forever, right? It's like teach and scale. So that's kind of like the beauty of it.
I have a great example, right? So when AI wasn't around when I was doing my maintenance stuff, but
Mhm.
when my maintenance was killing me. I mean, my churn rate was so high. It was all due to maintenance and how we were handling it, right?
Yeah.
And so I decided to hire remote team members. And at the point, I'm like, man, I have to train them on this. And so I went down this, I created a whole process flow. And what I realized as I'm training them that I didn't have policies for a bunch of stuff. I didn't have processes for a bunch of stuff. I didn't have documentation for a bunch of stuff. So I think what's happening now, it's AI seems like, oh, it's just, hey, let me just pay Vendoroo, get AI, and it's going to solve all my problems. And really, what you just said makes so much sense to me. I got to train this thing, and it might even take 2 months instead of 2 weeks potentially,
Sure. Yeah.
depending on your policies, your processes, your man. Where can you direct it to? And then, like again, my team, 90 days it took me, which I
Mhm.
know not a lot of people have the patience for 90 days to train somebody, but 90 days, and after 90 days. Believe it or not, I think it was about 90% of the stuff was handled,
Yeah.
10% got escalated to the property managers, right? So very similar to your
That's it.
85%. And so, one of the challenges that I'm guessing you guys have with onboarding is like, hey, I get it. I want to turn it on and then I want to set it and forget it. And it just can't be. You gotta have these processes and policies and just ways of doing business.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. Like at first we had to convince people that this could really happen, and then it started happening for people, and then we got great demand, and now what everything we have focused on, like really, really heavily since, particularly since it's broker owner, is the onboarding experience. It's like, going from telling you, hey, this is a wholesale change, so how is this incremental for you, and how can we get you to winning? So yeah, you nailed it, man. So what we do is we'll do like a 2 week cohort onboarding where we're like hooking everything up and we're taking you through with a group of other people so you get to be each other's support system. And then after that, the next like 2 to 4 weeks, you're getting weekly coaching with AI coach that is helping you just like refine it, teaching you how to coach it. Then the next 30 days, basically you're doing that on your own, and we're bringing you kind of like, hey, these are the best practices that we're seeing. And like you said, it's generally under 90 days, but in under by day 90, you should be at that 85% automation piece. And then at that point, it gets really interesting. Like our best clients, we call it the 5% club. They're at like 95% automation, and they spent their day doing very different activities than the average maintenance person does. They really are working on the business.
Yeah, I want to go back to the whole stress thing, right? And we know we kind of really hit a really big pain point with property manager companies, that maintenance is one of the big stressors, right?
Yeah.
Huge stressor. Obviously, using AI with a combination of a couple of remote team members or team members can really reduce that stress for the business, because you're finding those taps before they become two by fours. Because once something's a two by four or a Mack truck, it's stressful.
Yeah.
It's right, dealing with a real estate complaint, or getting served, and you're now you have an attorney breathing down your neck. That becomes super stressful for everyone, right? So this really reduces stress. So you talk to a lot of property management companies, a lot of property management people. You run a podcast. What are some other stress points or ways that property management companies can set up their business to reduce some of that stress for them and their team?
Man, I think you're gonna like this answer, but I think it all starts at core values, right? Like I honestly think that knowing, I think the best perk that you can give anybody is working with A players, right? And in order to work with A players, you taught me this, right? Like in order to work with A players, you got to understand what, like what test are we actually trying to pass here? And that comes down to core values, right? So like I'm a big believer in just like understanding that you're putting the right people in the right seat of the bus, and telling them like where do we believe this bus is going, and how do we agree that, like what are the laws of the road, right? Like, so I think that that's number one is that part of it. Beyond that,
I
Pete,
love that, because
yeah,
if you find the right people to get on the boat,
yeah,
then you reduce churn, and you reduce animosity, and you're reducing stress in that environment.
yeah,
All right, well, go ahead. I interrupt you. Sorry, you had a thought.
yeah. No, man, you know, I really think I see a big difference. I've always wanted to be, as a business leader. I've always wanted to be. There's two kinds of business leaders. There's the type of boss that when they walk into the room, everybody gets tense, and there's the type of boss that when they walk into the room, everybody mellows out. Right? I think that's such a big piece of it. And I think a lot about how I affect people around me. And what I've really boiled leadership down to, is the ability to cast a vision of like where we're going,
Mhm.
create clarity around what the scoreboard is, like are we winning or are we losing, and then being able to consistently like let people know where they're at on that scoreboard, where they're at on that part of the map, and then celebrating when we get there, right? Like I think it's a really underrated piece. When when we want people to do their best work, we have to create psychological safety. And whether or not, whether or not it is a stressful environment or not, having the psychological safety of this is the type of mistake I know I'm allowed to make, and this is the type of mistake I know I'm not allowed to make, I think goes a really, really long way.
I think that's very well said. You know, when look, at Empire and at VPM, I'm a hard charger. Like, we're startup companies, got to
Yeah.
work hard. But the funny thing is, I found people who love it and thrive in that type of environment. And so, just because somebody may not be a good fit for me, they may be a great fit for you. So
Mhm.
so finding your core values and your culture, and hiring the right people for that. And then I love what you said. I'm a big KPI guy, right? Um, people want to be managed and people inherently want to do a good job.
Yeah.
So if I do a good job, and if you're the type of manager that's only looking at like all my imperfections,
Hmm.
like you said, the other thing too, celebrate the wins. Not just your company wins, but like your person, like celebrate the wins for the team as each team member
Hmm.
as well. If I feel appreciated, I'm getting like most people, they don't look at pay as the top three things like when they leave a job or take a job, right? A lot of them is like it's more of do are they doing something worthwhile and are they getting recognized
Yeah.
for that? And so I think people, if you get the right people and you set up the structure, it really reduces churn. I was thinking more tactical. As I'm writing these notes down, as I'm talking to you, you literally pivoted me onto it's not as tactical as it really is a mindset with vision, mission, culture, and just taking care of people.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I agree. So to be honest, right? Like I felt a little bit insecure when you asked the question because on a tactical level, how do you reduce stress? I have to assume it's technology and processes and all these different things. But I really only know my lane, right? Like I really only know like how it is with AI and maintenance right now and what that's doing. But from the top down, I really do think this like idea of stress and psychological safety is something that we don't think about a lot. Another thing I think about a lot is elevating the work, man. Like if you can tie it to a grander vision that isn't BS, that also gives you more, right? Like so, um, right now we are in the middle of this like tumultuous kind of like time in I think politics and whatnot, right? Like I think there's just like a lot of stuff happening around us. If you can zone in on like a change that you're going to make for people and get people to really, really buy in on it, and then like keep track of that, whether it's supporting a nonprofit or whether it's, hey, like we measure success by the amount of residents that tell us that like their kid is getting better grades because they're living with us, right? But like, how do you elevate the standard of like what you are working on? I think that really helps you set like a higher sight. It's like when you're riding a motorcycle, you go towards where you're looking, right? So like if you're looking high, you're gonna be going high. If you're looking down at the ground for like the things that are going wrong, that also does a lot to the psyche, and I think that really really helps as well.
I was talking to Matthew Whitaker over at Evernest, and I bumped into him at a NARPM event. I think it was Broke Groner earlier this year where I met you in Colorado.
Yep.
And he basically told me like his vision was like it's a number, right? It's X thousand units or whatever by a certain time. And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, but how do your team get excited about that?"
Yeah.
Right? Because that could be tied to just or if it's a revenue thing or whatever, right? That's like, and what he said was like, he goes, "What I do, Pete," he goes, "is I paint the picture for them." Right?
Mhm.
What does it mean when we get to X amount of units?
Mhm.
It means more opportunity. It means more growth. It means more, it just and he paints this picture for them. And then I started realizing I'm like, not too many people, Pablo, want to take a job. Let's just say, for example, like, hey, I'm going to take a job as a maintenance coordinator for this property that's doing 200 single families. And by the way, that's all we ever want to do. Like now, there are people that like you're gonna have to hire high S's if you're in a disc. I talk disc, but like there's gonna be a very large number of people that are not going to want to stay with that organization. And then the opposite effect happens where you're growing, 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 and people don't want to change that much either. So I
Mhm.
think reducing churn of your people over time will also reduce stress in your.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Reduce stress. And you know what I like about what you just said is that's where I wanted to land and I kind of like lost the scent. But you elevate kind of the mission and then you just elevate the actual like work of what people are doing the same way that you just said, like making it obvious of like what's in it for them. I know that for my team, um, the idea of So the team that I manage within Vendoroo, right? Remote team. I invested in them heavily. I have my own marketing business that got essentially acquired and absorbed by Vendoroo. And 2 years ago, I decided to fly to the Philippines. I've been working with some of them for like 5 years, some of them for about a year, and I knew that to get us to the next level, it was all about, like I could plan all these different things, or I could make it very, very clear to them that if they level up, the company levels up, and if the company levels up, their life will materially change. Right. So I flew over there. We had this like offsite that has paid off. It's one of the best ROI things that I have ever done to tie that in. And nowadays I find myself essentially telling them, guys, like, yeah, we're still doing the same type of stuff, but the what you get to experience right now, this idea of taking an industry from believing that they could do that the best that they could do was just this like really high stress job and not churn, to being the tip of the spear in AI and like having these like new collar jobs and stuff like that. This is an experience nobody's ever going to be able to take from you. Like, you're becoming so much more valuable in the workforce. Like, your marketing skill set of like leading through an inflection point is something that no matter whether you're working for me in 10 years or not, you're going to be telling stories in job interviews and resumes and in boardrooms of the lessons learned from this. And I see it the same way inside of property management, right? Like the property management, the broker owner that decides we are now in this big inflection point with AI. We can either like wait to see what comes for us, or we're going to lead the way here, can go on and tell that story to their team, right? Like, they can go on and be like, guys, you know, ladies and gentlemen, like, we are not going to sit back and do this. You will be the first of the people in the property management industry that will understand how to do things AI first. Everybody's going to have to catch up, and you're going to be way out ahead, right? Like, we are doing this to not just make this company better and preserve our like sovereignty and our outcomes forever, but also in your career as well. If you can show that you can adapt to this new reality in your next job interview, I guarantee you someone's going to ask you, A, how good are you at AI? And B, tell me about a time where you had to like go to the drawing board and figure out how to get started again and like overcome an obstacle. I think that is a very motivating factor for people as well today.
Agreed, 100%. Look, I ask on interviews now, tell me a time when you used AI to solve a challenge.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me a time where you used AI. And if you are in development or marketing or anything now and you haven't used it and you're not, you're younger than me, I have an excuse. I'm older than dirt. I'm 3 days older than dirt, Pablo. So I have an excuse and I own the company. I'm
Yeah.
just teasing. I actually use AI, probably not as much as a lot of other folks, but I'm using it daily, like
Sure.
literally. All right, man. We're up against it. Pablo, great conversation. If somebody's interested in learning more about Vendoroo, or they need to create a job description for a chief evangelist, how do they get in touch with you?
If you want to get in touch with me, Pablo at Vendoroo.ai. Vendoroo's tough to spell. You can look me up on LinkedIn, but I'm Pablo Gonzalez, so it's like the John Smith of like
Of
of Hispanic
Cubans?
people. Yeah, of Cuban. Yeah, like I say I'm the John Smith of the guys that have 6 kids and name them all after themselves. So it's really hard. It's really hard to look up. I'd say look me up there. Listen, if you wanna get in touch with me, I would say give Pete a 5-star review for his podcast, right? Like, the amount of work that you put in for this. If somebody does something nice for Pete, I want to get to know you and I want to be your friend. And I think that, like, it's very easy to just go into like the app and hit 5 stars. You don't even have to write a review and send Pete a screenshot. And I'm sure that you can put us in contact.
I appreciate that. And Vendoroo is not that difficult to spell. It's vendor O.
True. Like kangaroo, but vendor.
If you are listening to this and you are not a NARPM member, you can join at narpm.org, narpm.org, or you can give them a call at 800-782-3452. And if you decide that you're going to use Vendoroo and you need a couple of remote team members to enable that AI for you, give us a shot at vpmsolutions.com. Email me directly, Pete at vpmsolutions.com. Thanks, everybody. See you, Pablo.
See you, bud.